Hey kids, do you like professional wrestling? Well, we like professional wrestling too. Today in the news, Nattie resigns with WWE in the Lazy River. MJF and Ospreay go an hour. And in Vader Club, Doom, Butch Reed, and Ron Simmons versus Big Van Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow from New Japan. Kind of stoked for that. This is Shake Them Ropes. I am Jeff Hawkins. He is Chris Novembrino. And Chris, local news station in Albuquerque, ran a story that Albuquerque is the 20th most dangerous city in the world. A report that prompted the mayor of Albuquerque to call the station and pull the story from the website, which they did. Your thoughts being a resident of the ABQ?
Oh, it's so funny you should mention the crime rates in Albuquerque. It's actually something that has been the subject of my personal life here recently. Not like I've been the victim of crime, but just I'm trying to relocate. There is a very dicey part of Central Avenue, which is historic Route 66, which is probably what most people around the world would be familiar with, known as the War Zone, that takes you through kind of the heart of Albuquerque, in particular past a casino. And in that casino area is where the city gets really rough. Look, recently in the news and more broadly, there's this discussion about fentanyl, right? And I think until you actually drive through a place where fentanyl has hit a community, you don't really understand the scope and the depth of the fentanyl problem. And in Albuquerque, down in the war zone area, people are actually openly smoking fentanyl on the streets. It's kind of you would be familiar with season 4 of The Wire,
Yes.
where the local police department in Baltimore sort of decided to create Hamsterdam.
Oh, yes, the paper sack for drugs.
Yes, essentially, that is what has happened in Albuquerque. I would liken what is going on in the war zone to Amsterdam
Oh,
because there's
wow.
no, yes, because there's no way that the police department isn't aware of the breadth and the scope of it, and they just kind of clamp down on it and tamp down on it periodically, but don't ever really stop it. So yeah, no, it's really bad. I mean, the thing with the fentanyl, just to kind of finish thought real quickly on that is, I mean, there every decade seems to have, its hard drug of the moment that, runs wild on the streets. But fentanyl has this particularly pernicious quality of basically contorting people into like horrible shapes. I mean, like I see people on a regular basis like walking like bent hard to one side. And this is a very common symptom of heavy usage of it is people's entire postures move into a zombie-like state. It's really horrific to see. So my thoughts on Albuquerque are, yeah, no, there are parts that are absolutely a dangerous place. You drive through, you lock your doors, you definitely don't get out of your car and walk around with your kids.
Gonna give some context here. I have been talking wrestling for the past 2 days for a couple hours. I did the Dynamite show and I did a fight game uh, podcast over on F4W. So if I feel like I'm not wanting to talk about things, it's probably because I've already done so much audio on them that I feel like I'm repeating myself at times. So I apologize for that. But let's get some news here. Nattie Neidhart officially resigning with WWE, terms not disclosed. Not really a shock to me, but I would have been a nice little coup for AEW, I think, especially during the Owen tournament, if they had been able to at least get a appearance by Nattie Neidhart. But also keeping in mind that her husband has a lifetime no cut contract, I believe, with the deal due to her husband being TJ Kidd. I believe that's the name. He got hurt by the muscle buster by Samoa Joe at the time, and it was unable to wrestle again. He's now working as a producer, mostly with women in tag teams over there. But any strong thoughts either way on the Nattie re-signing, or should I go to the next story?
Look, Nattie's had a nice run in the last 6 to 12 months in particular. She's never been my favorite wrestler in the company, but I think that she certainly serves the role that the company needs of legend, and I think she'll transition nicely into that role.
It's a slow news week, Chris, and I'm giving you one that I'm teeing up for you. Hulk Hogan appeared tonight at the Republican National Convention introducing Donald Trump. Go.
You know, we never convicted Hulk Hogan of anything in the court of law. He and whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty. I think if you're looking for an analog in professional wrestling to Donald Trump, other than Donald Trump, who was in fact in professional wrestling, you'd be hard pressed to find a better analog than Hulk Hogan, save for perhaps Ric Flair, but I guess he wasn't available for the appearance.
We could have any number of eggheads who have written white papers and thoughtful, political pundits, or Thomas Sowell could introduce a politician of the RNC. No, Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock tonight. Why not? I just
in
Mitch
some ways,
McConnell is rolling over in his grave right now.
these things sort of speak for themselves, right? At a certain point, it's beyond parody.
Populism. It stinks. Anyways, NXT's Wes Lee will reunite with the Rascals in the ring on Saturday's Slammiversary pay-per-view for TNT as Lee, Trey Miguel, and Zach Wentz face NXT's No Quarter Catch Crew trio of Charlie Dempsey, Miles Bourne, and Tavion Heights. Also getting a nice little bit of play on this week's NXT was one Joe Hendry. He is in the main event facing Moose for the TNA title. Chris, how do you think this TNA NXT relationship is working out?
I think when you hear NXTNA being chanted on WWE television, that this is clearly a great deal for TNA. That this is building the profile of every person they have under contract. Now, might they end up losing a number of those people? Sure. And they have to be wary of that or aware of that as part of this deal. Like, you are raising the profile of these people to the point where they're going to be priced out. But in the final season, you're underpaying for these guys. Yeah, you're not going to have Joe Hendry forever, but he's going to be hot as hell for the next several months that you still have him available.
I like this relationship a lot. It's a little bit exciting for a product that I consider very, very stale. I'm not the biggest NXT fan in the world anymore. I'll watch it, but it's just one of those things where it's just like there's so much contrived, but there's a lot of excitement going on, especially with the additions, I think, of Stephanie Vaquer and Julia, who appear to be keeping their name.
Moose going up against Obafemi might be a nice option at some point.
Don't tease me. I don't think we're getting that ever, because there's no way Moose is going to lose to Obafemi. And I don't think they're going to let Obafemi lose to Moose on the other show, possible. Maybe on TNA, but not on NXT. He's too valuable commodity, but I love that idea out of you, Chris. I really do. It's now making me sad thinking about it. But and some just general ratings talk. AEW doing well this time. I believe it's 795,000, one of their better numbers, especially going up against a newsworthy Republican National Convention. Raw a little bit down because they were going against both the convention and the Home Run Derby. Most everything kind of staying the same around there. So, but that'll take us into the lazy river of wrestling criticism whenever we had time for, whatever crosses our mind amongst any of the big companies we'll talk about here. And we should at least start with the fact that AEW took a wild kind of a chance and did a 60-minute match on free television between MJF and Will Ospreay. Your thoughts on this match, Chris?
I mean, the work was certainly there. It was just a perplexing choice to me to go, basically go Broadway, and do a full 60-minute match or a near full 60-minute match, 59 seconds or 59 minutes and 58 seconds. I think that they got a good rating, and that sort of forgives the sin. It's weird, or like, and the sin to me, and this is going to be very strange, and I'm sure people will be all over it, is it's almost like there's too much wrestling on my wrestling show. Like on my TV show, I want more I want more story and build. And I want the work on the pay-per-view. I now that I have seen Ospreay and MJF wrestle for an hour, I am hard pressed to come up with what they can do to top the level of work. And I don't necessarily want to see them wrestle an hour again either. For me, this week, like Raw was a better formulation of what I want out of a wrestling television show, which is some good wrestling, but a lot of entertaining story. And AEW sort of went all in on this story between MJF and Ospreay as the centerpiece of the show, doing it in the 60-minute match. And so now you've put yourself in an interesting corner of how do you top that?
I came under a lot of fire for my opinion, but mine is very similar to yours, and I'll explain a little bit. I'll be repeating myself, but that's fine. It's cool. Some people haven't listened to my other shows. I thought the match was technically sound. I thought the athleticism was great. I thought the match lacked soul. It lacked a struggle. The guys are such good athletes that they're going full bore after 60 minutes, and they're pretending to have oxygen masks afterwards. But where is the guttural struggle in a title match, and especially a title match that's a blood feud? Where's the emotion? Where is MJF being frustrated he can't beat Will Ospreay? Where is Will Ospreay starting to lose control because he hates MJF so much that he eventually tries the Tiger Driver instead of just a contrived thing with 3 minutes left? Oh my God, I can't believe that. Gets hit by the ring 1, 2, 3. There's no, for lack of a better term, Ricky Morton struggle in this where he's been beat down, but he's crawling back and getting, no, everybody, you sell your leg for 20 seconds and you go full bore again. I said I was bored by this match a couple nights ago, and that's possibly a strong statement in it.
It felt like an exhibition of moves at certain points.
It's an indie match where you're waiting for the first kick out to really get involved in it. That's what it was to me. It was a super indie match, and it was very athletic. It was very clean. That's the other thing. It's like they're doing poison ranas and they don't affect you. It's one of those things where I want to see the effects of time and the moves on the wrestlers while they're in this. And I get that's not the style anymore, quote unquote, but it also makes wrestling very boring for me personally, because it feels like these guys we're just going to do this great match, technically sound, do it for the star ratings, so to speak, quote unquote, but not really. I'm not denigrating that, but it's one of those things where I say, well, what's the goal of this match? The goal of this match is really to tell you that MJF is still to heat up MJF as a heel. And so we need to build the match around that versus building a match around 45-degree camera angles that we're stealing from New Japan when Will Ospreay was there, when he does a flip out of a Rana and lands on his feet. It really lacked struggle. It lacked heart in some ways to me. It lacked emotion to me in some ways. If you liked it, I don't mind. I really don't. Because everybody's taste can be fed by professional wrestling. It's one of those types of art forms.
But it's like Ospreay didn't have a story to tell really over 60 minutes. He had the final beat of the match where he has the minor existential crisis again.
Yes.
With the Tiger Driver.
Yeah.
Which I'm finding to be a tedious story. It was maybe fine with the Swerve Strickland stuff, but it begins to make him seem like he's got stupid baby face syndrome
Yes,
now.
very much so, and it makes him seem weak that he can't overcome his demons to beat somebody because
So then he has to beat MJF at Wembley with the Tiger Driver.
yes,
And then what does that do for MJF?
nothing. I mean, it's one of
Right.
those. It's one of these weird stories where it's like he's not out of control enough to be shocked and guilted out of doing a Tiger Driver. Brian Danielson's fine. He's wrestling. He's cool. And he's not out of control of his own emotions when beating up a heel.
Brian Danielson is having a world title match on the exact same card that Will Ospreay is having a
Yes.
match with. Like Will Ospreay, the character, knows this.
Yes. It's yeah, it makes no sense. And that's part of the problem here too. It's like his inner struck conflict with this move that he thinks can cripple people, but isn't actually crippling people. It's like, no, you need a sports
Why doesn't he talk to
psychologist.
Danielson?
Exactly. No.
Right? Like
Yeah.
in story, wouldn't the thing that he needs to unlock his soul, storyline wise, be a conversation with Brian Danielson where he gets the blessing to win matches?
Yeah. There's a lot of things that people need to sit down and actually put the pieces together to make the things make sense as opposed to going, well, it's just wrestling.
This is how I feel about the other parts on the show too, in terms of okay, you have Jericho having a match, and all of his cronies are banned from ringside per the authority of management. But how does that work? Who in management is banning Jericho's baddies? Is it the Bucks? Or is it Chris Daniels? Was it Tony Khan?
No, and I think it's all a plot device to get everybody out of the way so they can introduce whoever the new member of the learning tree is.
Right, and they'll come out and interfere in the
But
Suzuki
those
match.
questions have to be asked at times, and they don't do that certain. They do the A to B thinking, but they don't do the notes between the music type of a thing, where it's like, okay, how do we make this all make sense within the booking type of things?
We're like 3 months into this hostile takeover by the Bucks, and it is an afterthought.
Blood and
There's
Guts is literally an afterthought with me.
Yeah, it's a thing that happened, and yeah, they're having a match with a team AEW, but what's at stake if team AEW wins?
Don't know.
Right? It hasn't been articulated yet.
No, nothing's been articulated about the stakes of this match. Nothing's really been articulated about why exactly somebody would want somebody like the Acclaimed on their team. I mean, that promo was okay, but not really. There are facets that are interesting about the Elite to me because it's like one of those things where it's like, I think for emotional
The character work's actually not bad. It's the story work that's bad.
yes, the emotional resonance of if Brandon Cutler had been with the Bucks when Jack Perry decides to take him out, and the Bucks just decide to let sacrifice Cutler because it's too important of a relationship, and maybe Perry goes a bit too far in his beating, and maybe in that boiler room, maybe behind one of the boilers is just Adam Page just grumbling about Swerve because he's so livid and he can't be in public without thinking about Swerve. Then you have kind of an interesting dynamic with this team at least and stuff like that. But instead, we're just kind of settling on Kazuchika Okada has a crush on Mercedes.
Yeah. It and he's doing hammy stuff.
Yes.
Like he's quote unquote stealing the show or stealing the scenes, but that's not a good thing. He's supposed to be like the comic relief Wizzle Wazzle Woozle character. Like the actual story is supposed to be getting told through the Bucks. And I mean, I think to your point, there's a really interesting story potentially there of the Bucks with Okada, Jack Perry, and Adam Page. And the heels actually have a hard time sticking together because the Bucks can't really manage these three guys. All of them are unmanageable in different ways. And that's the constant tension in this heel faction of, will this implode? Can they keep this together? Can the Bucks somehow figure out a way to win even though everyone's rooting against them every week?
Yeah, it's weird what they've been doing with Okada. I get that he gets a pop. I get that, he's getting paid to do comedy and he might want to be a comedian. This might be his dream. But ever since New Japan came over to America, what people have wanted out of the New Japan wrestlers, they want the Tokyo Dome show with 3 or 4 5.5 star matches on it, and they never get it. They get Nakamura deciding he wants to surf and kind of do his weird artsy thing. They get Okada doing comedy. It's such a
These
weird,
guys come over for half retirement.
pretty much. This is their soft styles run. Yeah, no, I agree. It's like this is their grab the bag run. This isn't their I want to do bangers, over and over again. This is, hey, I want to get paid to not get injured type of a thing. And it's fascinating to watch the disappointment of wrestling fans about this. It really is, because like I remember, we're gonna go watch these matches in Long Beach when New Japan comes out there. Or, look, there's gonna be a G1 show in Dallas or whatever. It's like, you're not getting the show that you want. They're half-assing it the entire time because they don't have to work as hard in America because they have a rabid fan base who will pay for a half-assed show.
Yep. I mean, that was my experience at the Dallas show.
That's right. You went to that.
I went to that, and it was fine. It was not. It
was cromulent.
It was a perfectly acceptable wrestling show, but
Yes.
like at that point, New Japan was like the hot, smart wrestling fan,
Yes.
the refined wrestling fans product. And so you just had this imprimatur of quality that every show, especially a G1 show, are all going to be at a certain level.
Cool. I'll lay out for you to take another hit.
Okay. I guess let's swing it over then to the judgment days of our lives on Raw here. I can't get enough of all these segments. I think they're super entertaining. They have brought out some of the best character work in every member of the Judgment Day. Great to see Rhea and Priest on screen together again. They have just a really good chemistry, and Priest throughout the show was back to kind of his cool, suave.
He was, but he was impishly deviant on Monday.
Both Rhea and Priest were messing with Dominic throughout the episode. Yes. Priest with the line of the night of, dude, you've been to prison.
This is almost a villain origin story when Dom finally decides to cut the comedy and be serious, but I don't think that's ever going to happen anytime soon.
I really love the idea that Dominic Mysterio has told himself the souped up version of the time he went to jail overnight and is now gotten to the point where he's self-deluded to the point where he believes that he's been to prison.
The weird mind screw by Rhea, where it's, hey, I booked this match. Well, that was stupid. Okay, I'll go cancel it. Well, what are you, a coward? I'm just like, if I'm Dom, I want to see that moment of frustration where I'm like, what am I supposed to do here to be cool?
Well, and then you have the interesting beat in the match where Liv actually saves Dom and Rhea's the one who feeds him to the wolves.
Yeah.
And I thought that was an interesting little move where, like, Rhea, of course, at the end of the night gives him the rose, but she, in the ring, actually, pushed him away and fed him.
And Carlito.
Oh, not cool.
Not cool. Pay me $100,000. Thank you. Cha-ching.
uh, like I'm super happy for him. And then like the rest of this Raw show, I thought Sheamus versus Bronson Reed, nice little matchup here. Good stiff Sheamus style match. Bronson Reed doing the top rope moonsault was exceptional.
Fat guy moonsaults. I'm here for him.
Every time. Bronson Reed just continues to settle more and more into this really solid upper mid card heel role. And you could totally see the crowd getting behind him at some point and having a nice little babyface run too. It's like kind of like an underdog babyface because he is a little undersized, like short, but powerful and stuff. Bronson Reed's cool, dude. I appreciate him more and more. Oh, your turn. Here, you
Okay,
take
no,
one.
I'll stay on Raw for a bit because there's a couple things that are really good on Raw, and there's something I talked about earlier tonight that I want to bring up with you. And I think I'll do that right now. This Drew McIntyre CM Punk thing, so good,
So good.
and I'm getting the feeling now that we're going to work our way into a double turn where we have two jerks with a point right now, and the guy that relents first is going to be the babyface, and the guy who stays obsessive is going to be the heel, and that's obviously going to be CM Punk because Punk is such a great jerk in so many ways. But Drew is working himself through the heeldom into being a sympathetic babyface in some aspect because this jerk Punk keeps on screwing with him so much.
But
And
then
it's
he
kind of
played
beautiful to
himself
watch.
this week. This week
Yeah.
was so good because I think prior to this week you were kind of right that like we were going to get this, but then we have this wonderful piece of business with Adam Pearce and the referees. Pierce was awesome in this.
They put their lives on the line for you. Hold on, Pierce.
It's so good. And like Pierce was excellent in this because Drew has been coming out there and acting like a baby face or sort of trying to appeal and manipulate the crowd. Oh, we all want to see us fight, right? But all this sort of stuff. And kind of batting his eyelashes at Adam Page, or Adam Pearce, make the match. And Pierce is like, sure, man. No, I get it. You're a changed guy. I just need you to do one simple thing. I just need you to say that you're sorry for hitting an official. And watching McIntyre realize that process that and try to come to like some sort of contrived emotional state where he can do it, but even then his pride won't let him. His arrogance and pride won't let him admit that he's been wrong in any way, shape, or form throughout this. You'd think
it's the scene in Candyland from Django Unchained, where it's like, I insist that you shake on it. It's like, you're insisting I shake on it, even though after you screw, and then he shoots him. It's very cool.
Yeah, no, it was a great moment, and I thought it made Pierce look strong as a managerial figure too, because he wasn't going to let himself get pushed around. Seth Rollins coming down also adds another interesting moving part here because Rollins has beef with both of them.
He's actually the most sympathetic of everybody.
Of the three, exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, this could play out where both Punk and McIntyre are heels, and I like how the referee issue at the pay-per-view has been turned into a really quality piece of business across the board over the last 2 weeks. First with Priest saying to Seth Rollins, basically, we can run it back. You still have another crack at the title. And then having Gunther sort of imply that in his promo against Priest here, that Priest has been lucky that he doesn't win clean, doesn't win in these dominant sorts of ways. He's lucky.
Although I still cringe whenever they write a line that is a little too over the top mean. Like Gunther's, being on the streets is a choice. that's a line where it goes, well, that should be at the Republican National Convention right there. You know, you know,
It certainly is not spoken like someone who is driven through the war zone.
you're just kind of like, wow. I mean, that's such a blind type of thing. They're
Uh,
even like, wow,
like I mean, it's a heel. It's extremely heel in the sense that it's like both cruel and naive. But yeah, to your point, it's like so cruel and naive that it also implies a certain level of like stupid. Like
yes,
it's like saying like, well, Jeff, people are poor because they're dumb.
yeah. And one other thing on Raw for me at least, or actually I got two, if you don't mind. One will be a quick. I love the Eric Rowan promo.
Oh my God.
It is so
Oh, so good.
is so much great effort for a gimmick that sucks. That's the problem with it. Is this Wyatt Six stuff sucks because once they get past that first pay-per-view, audience is going to turn on them because there's no Bray Wyatt coming out ever. It's a sympathy play.
I don't know. People do seem to be behind Bo so far.
Yeah, it's just but
So
spooky
like,
stuff sucks. It
no,
does.
the spooky stuff sucks. I think Bo looks great.
Yes.
He looks awesome.
But this
And
Rowan promo is just, I'm like, where has
it's
this
great.
been? Because it's one of those things where he's not known as a promo guy, but I like the grounded in reality from a company that doesn't do it that well all that often, or it doesn't have a history of doing it. It was
The writing
real.
was so good on this.
It was raw. It was raw and real, and I loved it. I really did. I like having this kind of realism as a setup for an angle in professional wrestling. It helps blur the lines occasionally. And then I love.
Well, there's that line. There's that line where he basically said like we're trying to make art out of our pain.
Yeah.
And I thought that line was a really beautiful
Yeah.
piece of blurring the lines, but in this very tasteful and pretty way. Like it was. I mean,
it was pretty. That was the line. That was the word I was going to use. It was very pretty.
It was pretty. And the other thing I like is I do think we are red pilling McAfee. That Gable was the bait and switch, and that it's going to be McAfee who is the one who ends up joining the Wyatts. Like at the end when he was like, it was an honor to bring that tape. Like he's getting more and more red pilled by this.
Huh.
He was red pilled by the QR codes. Remember, like they initially started showing them, and like then McAfee started saying, like, I was looking up what was going on with those QR codes the other night. There's some really weird stuff in those videos, and the stuff keeps happening to him on his show, and he gets more and more open to it and in favor of it.
That's interesting.
I don't think any of this is going to be super great, but then I keep fading it and it keeps exceeding my expectations. So I'm hoping that trend line continues.
The weakness here is the stuff that they're actually doing on McAfee's straight show, where it's just like, okay, cool. I mean, it's kind of goofy, but yeah, I see your point. I will. McAfee would be game for that kind of stuff, though, too.
And it would be interesting to see him do a little wrestling again.
I love him as a wrestler.
I like him. I like him as a wrestler, and I think in a big faction like this, he could do some of his high spots and stuff, and just be like crazy Pat McAfee for like another short run.
I adore any pairing of Ilya Dragunov and Sami Zayn. That promo about how Ilya, that basically deconstructs how Ilya wrestles his matches, was so fantastic. And for the 8 minutes that we got before Braun Breaker comes in and just murder deaths everybody. Oh, I want this, Chris. I want a 15-minute match of these two.
Yeah.
And I want to see and I actually want to see Dragunov go over after struggle. That's the thing. He gives you the struggle every time, man, and that's what I dig about him.
I think this Dragunov Breaker Zayn triangle needs to sort of like resolve with Dragunov finally coming up from under against Breaker to become #1 contender, and then coming up from under and beating Zayn. and
I
Zayn
don't.
have
That's not going to happen though.
that's not going to
You know
happen.
it's not going to happen. Dragunov's being added into like a three-way so that Braun can beat him and take Sammy's title because they don't want to
Yeah,
beat Sammy.
they don't want to
It's
beat Sammy. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Um,
But no, to me, it'd be great to have Dragunov ultimately be the same caliber of underdog as Sami Zayn, and that's the story here.
your turn, sir.
All right. What else do we have here? I think the new Zoe Stark, Shayna Baszler, Sonya Deville trio has good swagger about them.
Yes.
Yeah, like it works.
It's the
Uh,
best thing about them is the swagger.
yeah,
But I don't think they're gonna go. They're not gonna let them be the main killers on Raw necessarily, and that's the problem for me. Is you can
yeah.
already see them kind of holding back the limitations in a little bit.
And then I guess my final thought on Raw here is going back to the Wyatts. The other part of the puzzle here is we saw Chad Gable debut a new faction here, and it felt like a real afterthought. And they already felt like goobers with
Yes,
Chad Gable leaving them in the ring to
they
sort
feel
of
like red shirts for Gable already, as opposed to giving the Creed some sort of rub from it.
it was very silly to have the Wyatts, who I guess are a babyface now that we're cheering for, go up against a brand new heel faction. Instead, what they should be doing, and
Are the
this is
Wyatts
just,
heels?
I think they're faces.
I think they're baby faces. Yeah.
I think so too. That's what I mean. Like that, they're going up against the new heel
Oh,
faction.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. So I would have the Wyatts instead be the annihilating force against a heel faction that you're not vibing on anymore. I don't know. Like, if let's say you were like, they shouldn't do this, but let's say you were done with carrying Cross's faction, the Wyatts should come up and beat those guys, not as the new baby faces, not like beat Chad Gable and a couple of red shirts who just formed as a faction because they haven't done anything. So like, why would I think that Chad Gable's new team is better than Alpha Academy right now when there's nothing to suggest that they are?
Karrion Cross, still a sneaky good promo.
I like Karrion Cross now.
He has a
I've
certain
come around on
swagger.
him.
He has a
Yeah.
swagger about his promo where it's just kind of like, I'm gonna do a little scenery chewing. I'm gonna show you a little bit of my personality in this, and I'm not just doing the angry TikTok stuff. I'm a little cocky here, and I kind of dig it.
And then I guess we can finish off now with
Well, hold
NXT.
on. I'm gonna circle back to AEW for a quick one
Okay,
because I
sure.
really, actually, the Mariah May thing needed to be dragged out over 3 weeks. And this week needed to be a video teaser of what the transformation was going to be, and then the reveal next week could be the All About Eve. I really just wanted to be Tony Storm this entire time. It went too quickly, but my God, I pumped my fist and laughed uproariously when Tony Schiavone goes, "Speak, B word," to Mariah May, his righteous anger being so angry that that she beat up his friend, that even Taz and Excalibur are like, whoa, type of a thing. But it was a genuine emotion on such a contrived commentary team. I am so done with Taz and Excalibur not being focused enough on the show, that they're always trying to pull Shivani out of character. And then once Shivani gets out of character, it becomes him and Taz bickering in some ways. It was just a nice little, Tony's so angry and it's such a righteous anger and it felt real, and that's what I want out of my wrestling shows occasionally. I don't know how you felt about it, but and I get that
No,
might be problematic to
I
some people.
I mean, I like it, and I think my observation on Raw in recent weeks is it's just been so much more fun to listen to an engaged Michael Cole
Yes.
be in the universe, calling the action, having fun, clearly enjoying Pat McAfee's like antics, and like sort of the craziness of Pat
Well, he
McAfee's.
needs to be on guard for McAfee because McAfee just will say, and it's a little like Vic on NXT, where it's just like Booker's going to be self-destructive on a certain level, although McAfee's a far more fun version of self-destructive versus Booker T.
Yeah, no, I think not having a commentary team that is always engaged or at times getting meta, like this week on Dynamite, Excalibur and Taz expounding on the usage of blah 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 Jones and like other Taz isms that he just says because he's not good at his job.
Yes.
And everyone now just sort of thinks it's funny, but it's like not
It's
actually not. It's not that funny,
it's
like
doing what we were criticizing JR for in that first year, where he was watching it as a talent relations guy instead of a play-by-play guy. It's just a more lazy version of that.
it feels like Taz is watching wrestling at home on TV
Yes.
rather than he's not a commentator. He's like watching it and talking to his cousin and his kid and explaining like wrestling or whatever. He's sort of doing play by play like 60% of the time, and then the other 40% of the time making jokes about things.
Right. He knows his gimmick, and he's now referencing his own gimmick while he's doing the gimmick. It's a little ridiculous in some ways.
Yeah, I don't know. It's things like and that's happening during this 60-minute match. So going back to just MJF and Ospreay, one of the things that's pulling you out of the match, in addition to match flow and we're just doing big spot after big spot, poison ranas and getting back up, is you have commentary not always being locked into the
Yeah.
60-minute experience and AEW kind of forgetting that an important part of the presentation in one of these long form matches is that the commentary is sort of like a symphony sort of rising to a crescendo, especially in that like 45 minutes. They're calling the match somewhere around 35 40 minutes. They're like, something really special is happening here, guys. And like then you got the guy who's the play-by-play bringing up historical factoids or whatever about, the last time we had a match this long, it was blah, 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 and then you hit the 50-minute mark. And the last time we had a match, it was blah, blah, blah. And basically everyone thinking about the historicity of this. And that really requires all three commentary members or both commentary members, especially the heel one, to be really locked into the action and really caring about it. Because my ability to care about it is contingent on their ability to care about it.
Yes.
When Taz is like, huff my fart Jones, then that tells me that I don't have to care about what I'm watching on the screen right now.
No, definitely agree. You wanted to go to NXT, so we will go there.
I mean, we have to go to NXT. We are obligated if we are going to do our service to the fans here. I think the most interesting thing. Okay, one, I'll start with this. Ethan Page, in 2 weeks, is a far better champion, warts and all, with the presentation. Just the in-ring action feels like world champion work in a way that Trick Williams did not deliver on at any point during his title reign. That match against Dante Chen, was a great exhibition of Page toying and playing with his food.
Chris, I am vastly disappointed that we did not get a "Who are you to doubt Dante Chen" on NXT.
That must have been pitched and then sort of been like, oh, it's too brutal. It's too brutal. But like, no, it's great. Ethan Page gives the title match to El Dandy.
Yes. I agree. I love Ethan Page, just brings a certain confidence. Trick was looking for approval, I think, and you could feel that in some of his presentation. I still like him a lot. It was just one of those things where Page is just like, it's like, I've been here, I've done that, I know what I'm doing with this title.
He knows what he's doing in the match. Williams,
That too.
my big criticism of Williams remains that move to move has no connective tissue. That the Trick Williams match style cannot be summarized. And the Ethan Page match style is an arrogant power move driven offense. He uses a lot of power moves, and the pacing is slowed down off of those power moves by his ego and arrogance. But at the core, Page is looking to outpower his opponents. I
I
can't summarize Trick Williams.
Yeah.
He
Um,
comes for the knee.
I like when people that I plug as a positive or people that I am a fan of do well in wrestling. I said when she was signed, I thought that was a great pickup in it because she had taken an extraordinary amount of heat for bad reasons because she had a similar thing to Bianca Belair. But in the no quarter catch crew segment, Maddie Renkowski, aka Ren Sinclair, brought it. I love this. I am a witness to a murder, as are others. But I want in the no quarter catch crew, and I'm gonna wrestle my way in, even though no girls allowed. It is such a ridiculously stupid gimmick, and I adore it.
I mean, so is Dempsey going to Tony D'Angelo to get advice on how to be a good mob boss.
Yes. What do I do when somebody sees my murders?
I hate this,
I hate it,
but
but I love it.
it's crossed the line twice for me, but I can't say I like it yet. But it's getting closer to that point where I'm okay with it, ish.
Yeah. I love Roxanne Perez.
I do too, but I
I
felt
hate
like
her
she.
as a heel. I don't buy her as a
See,
heel.
I buy her as a heel, but I thought that Thea Hale was not given the right material to
No,
countermand
this was two
Roxanne
people
Perez.
talking. This was two people talking past each other, is
I,
what it
I
was.
mean, Roxanne's material. Well, I just felt like it was Thea Hale playing a 10 and Roxanne coming out and playing a king or a queen. Just like her material is so much stronger. Of like, I'm gonna crush your dreams. I crush everybody's dreams. And Thea Hale doesn't have a real rebuttal to that. I've proved the doubters wrong, but like
No, she
she
hasn't.
she hasn't
That's,
exactly
that's the whole point.
right.
It's like
She
she
can't. She
needs to be.
came up short. Yeah.
She shouldn't be. I've proved the doubters wrong. She goes, I want to prove the doubters wrong. It should be a scrappy underdog story
Well,
versus Roxanne Perez.
and if anything, Roxanne saying this stuff is making Thea more and more angry because she's worried it might be true.
This should be a story of two undersized performers who are fighting each other too. That's what it should be because they're both like 4'5". I mean, it's yeah. I'm watching this promo. I'm like, I like both these people, but I hate this promo right now
Yeah.
because I don't buy it. I still think Roxanne's the one. If you just give her a straight ahead babyface push and do that, I mean, she's still tiny compared to like the main roster women. I mean, you put her up there next to Bailey. I still want to see that match though, but it's one of those things where it's just like maybe size is working against her getting called up because she's ready and she's technically better than most people. Thea Hale is, of course, a ball of fire and weirdness, which I love, but yeah, I was so disappointed in this segment.
Yeah. And then
Brooks Jensen.
it's interesting, but I mean I'd have him beat Javon Evans here. I wouldn't have him lose in this match.
I want to put those two together.
I would have put those two together. I mean, I don't know what the hell they're doing with Javon Evans. Like they're overexposing this guy
Yes.
and making him high profile, and then he loses a lot.
And they're overexposing him to losses too. That's
Yes,
the problem.
right. No, he's having high profile losses and low profile wins. And I would have I personally would have had him lose to Brooks Jensen here. I think the idea needs to be that Brooks Jensen's out of control.
Yes.
That
They're doing the Jack Perry story with him pretty much here.
yeah, that he's more dangerous now than ever before. I mean, and I would, since Obafemi is a true tweener, having a more dangerous than ever before Brooks Jensen building into a match against Obafemi, where like he could be crazy and dangerous enough to actually make Obafemi sort of have to work from under, that would be a different sort of story.
Yeah.
Jensen goes after Obafemi's leg, and Femi has to kind of figure out a way to overcome like knee and leg stuff throughout the match. So something that would be a kind of a different story for Femi. Crowd wants to cheer him anyways. They don't like booing him. They don't buy. They never commit to the baby face that Femi's up against. And that was the problem with the Duke Hudson match, right?
Right.
So I would have Brooks Jensen beat Evans, beat Briggs, none of this Sean Spears shit, and just have him go on a streak of he's not just beating opponents, he's beating the hell out of them after the match to the point where Ava has to like pull him out. And then he just starts basically screaming and frothing for Obafemi until Femi's like, yeah, I'll stop him. Basically like Femi's like, all right, this guy's a mad dog. I'm going to put him down.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like the end becomes the means, sort of to speak. It's like, okay, Brooks Jensen's running around just killing dudes, just murder deathing them in the ring and doing and like almost even getting DQ'd for kicking too much ass, which is the worst one ever. But you do that, and then Ava goes to Obafemi and goes, he's doing this all because of you. Yeah, I'll go take care of it. Boom. And Obafemi.
Yeah. And then you can set up, if you want to set up a longer feud with that, with just basically a very dangerous Brooks Jensen. I think there's an interesting story to tell there. Jensen's work is good enough that you could do it. I don't think that's the story they're trying to tell. But if you're asking me,
Briggs is still the more interesting half of the duo, though. That's the problem.
I agree, but they don't seem to feel that way for whatever reason.
Yeah, they're like, well, we know he's good. We know what we can do with him. We need to build up this other half, and I get that too. But yeah, I don't know if this is the way to do it, but we'll see. I got nothing else on NXT.
Tatum Paxley's new finisher is really cool.
She's a very good wrestler. The gimmick stinks.
The gimmick stinks, but she is a good wrestler, right? Like she has definitely, she was good already about a year ago.
And she plays the bad gimmick well, don't get me wrong.
And she's gotten even better. And I actually think, in terms of talent move for move, she's one of the more talented people on the roster who just is always burdened with these kind of stinky gimmicks. And I like Lola as a face. It's still, in a way, silly to not belt her because there's really not a lot for her to do.
Yeah.
Kalani Jordan, I'm gonna double down on my long-term she's turning heel. There's something assholey about her.
Huh.
Like there's
maybe
something
you just maybe you just hate nice people.
No, there's something aloof and prickish about her where it's like a hollow sort of nice.
Okay. I see it. I don't think that's what they're intending. I can't quite get there with that, but I mean, they're going to turn her heel eventually because that's what they do with everybody.
Yeah, but if the long-term story here is sort of like there's this like sort of weird hollow, not quite fake nice, but like
yeah, see, I can't get behind that because
she's not warm. It's like something less than that.
It's a contrived nice personality. She's a PR person.
Right. Right, exactly. And she sort of said that in that one promo before the Sol Ruka match, like where they were trying to accentuate the dichotomy between the two. If I'm thinking about that little promo package, the whole thing, where they were alike was in the performance background and everything, and where they were different, and this is by Jordan's own admission, was in the personality. And if Ruka's the chill, laid back one, what does that make Jordan then?
See, I would take those notes and I would go back and go, okay, what is our point with this person? And do we want to turn her heel? Because for me, I could see her being another one of these people that I never want to turn her heel. She has such a great, vibrant energy to her that I'd never want to see her be a heel ever. Kind
But
of a thing.
you see where I'm getting
But I
there,
see what
though.
you're getting. I see how she can come off that way. Yeah.
Well, especially again when you juxtapose her against Sol Ruka.
But the
And
problem is you just turned cowgirl.
Fallon Henley.
Fallon Henley kind of doing the same stuff, and it's just like, why are we going so quickly into these heel turns all of a sudden?
I mean, I also just hate like the lazy, unthought out heel
Yes.
character that Fallon Henley has of like, I hate these damn rookies.
Yeah, you know what Kalani is she is the too earnest baby face that becomes a heel, kind of like how Kurt Angle was at first, or like like the superhero who's like the. I don't watch The Boys, but I assume it's what Homelander is. He's the guy who's I'm here for America. I love America, and he's secretly the bad guy type of a thing.
Yeah, that could be interesting. I mean, yeah. So, anyways, like that's like my thought on Jordan. I think Mia Yim looks
Oh,
fantastic.
she looks great.
Dude, she's like really in just like outstanding shape right now. And you know, outside of that, the Duke Hudson match against Obafemi was. I mean, this is my concern with Obafemi, but I think it's much more manageable with his character than it was with our boy Trick Williams, which is you have to kind of manage around his limitations. Duke Hudson did fantastic work making Obafemi look about as good and as mobile as he possibly could. But Femi, especially in the last like 5 to 6 minutes of that match, was giving absolutely nothing to that match. That was all
Yes.
Duke Hudson in the final
And
like five.
and his comeback, which is fantastic, much like his hot tag. I
Yeah.
mean, he's really
It,
good at that.
and Femi, like when Femi retook control of the match, it wasn't good. His pop-up power bomb didn't look amazing. I think it's a bad move choice for him as well because he's so tall and his legs are so long before you get to his torso that whoever is running up to him has to jump pretty damn high to get to the point where Femi can pick them up and then power bomb them. And all of these people who are being asked to do this task are guys the size of Duke Hudson who struggle. I mean, Duke's pretty damn athletic considering his size, but it's a struggle to get up to Femi's height when you weigh 250, 260.
Yeah. Vader Club time.
Oh boy.
You can watch this match on Daily Motion. It is Doom, the team of Butch Reed and Ron Simmons versus Big Van Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow. I love Doom. It's one of my favorite debuts ever. At Halloween Havoc, I believe 88, maybe 89, when the Robin Green turned into woman, turned on the Steiners, introduced her new team. Two large black men in masks. And as Jim Ross goes, was there any mystery to it? We only had two of them in the company. But they did kind of the heel Killer Bees gimmick, with like a loaded mask and switching twin magic type of stuff until they were forced to unmask. And then they became a great team, is the story. I love Ron Simmons. I love Butch Reed. Butch Reed is one of those weird things where you watch him in Mid-South, and he's a fantastic babyface. And he was a fantastic heel with the Buddy Landell storyline in there. And then he goes to WWF. They dye his hair blonde. He becomes a natural. Hogan decides he doesn't want to do a feud with Butch Reed, so he's kind of stuck, doing mid-card feuds until they get tired of him. But he never gets as over as he was in Mid-South. He comes to WCW. He's there for a while, and then they just decide, okay, we're going to put him in Doom. And then after that, they put him in that Island of Misfit Toys stable kind of with Jake Roberts and Cactus Jack and Abdullah and Butch Reed and Dick Slater and just where they didn't have him. This match happens after Doom has officially broken up in WCW in storyline, but they still had they were still had the dates in Japan that they had to fill at the time. This is a meat match in every lovable way, but this is a Bam Bam Bigelow match in almost every way. Bigelow has his working shoes on. He's going to be doing dives and flips, and I think he has something to prove to the WCW suits that decided to let him go those many years ago out of the NWA after Ric Flair. You know, this match isn't great, but it's very, very good. I love the banter off of the aprons, treating it like it's a real sport, yelling at people to kick out, yelling, instructions and stuff within the match. Um, it's more of a Vader Bigelow showcase, and especially Bigelow, who is really, really great in this match. But it was a fun little comfort food thing for me. What did you think of it?
I mean, I always love Ron Simmons as a heel, and this iteration of Ron Simmons is like Farouk 10 years younger.
It's so weird. I want to go into that a bit because they teased Ron Simmons going heel early in his career by almost, because they talked about his Florida State football stuff so much that he almost became a member of the Varsity Club, and I think that would have been with Rotunda and Dr. Death and Kevin Sullivan. Give me that, baby. Because I mean, like Doom and the Varsity Club, I don't know if they ever had a match necessarily, but they were in that kind of that Hoss fed between 89 and 92 of Hoss teams that were in there with the Steiners and the Miracle Violence Collection and the Varsity Club and stuff like that. Heel Ron Simmons always worked because there's always a certain amount of anger to Ron Simmons and his promos.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of anger to his promos. His offense just makes so much more sense angry than it did as his world champion WCW run, where he's like feel good Ron Simmons. I just kind of want to see him angry and aggressive and no nonsense and beating up people. He made sense, you know. I've got the match on as we're talking about it here too. I just watched like Bam Bam and Vader like running the corner splash train on Butch Reed. Like and then like obviously when Doom takes over here, like they have enough power, but then they also like actually still work like a heelish style, pulling the ropes down, walking over them, just doing things they don't need to do that are just deliberately heelish.
Yeah, I was just in the mood for Doom for some reason. I almost picked the Arn Anderson Barry Windham street fight from Havoc 90, which is also very good, and I recommend, and maybe I'll recommend it, or maybe I'll watch it later for this thing. But yeah, it's an interesting hidden gem that not a lot of people have seen. Watching Doom versus Vader and Bigelow, and Vader and Bigelow are always a treat. So highly recommend you watching it. Anything else, Chris?
No, I got to pick out my Vader. I know who my Vader Club match is showcasing next week, but I need to decide
Who do you have?
It's gonna be Canyon. We're gonna do Chris Canyon here.
Maybe the Wrath match. I'm trying to think of. I'm trying to think of a match offhand.
Like him, and he had a good one against Perry Saturn, right?
Yeah, I think so. That would be a good one. But
yeah, I'll go through his fight DB. It might be that Canyon and Saturn.
Okay,
one.
so you pick out these matches the same way I do. I'm in the mood for a certain wrestler. I want to see one of his matches. Let's see what I can find on Pro Fight DB.
Right. That's basic. Like that is. It's like I let Pro Fight DB sort of jog my memory,
Right.
or hit me to maybe a pairing that I wasn't aware went down.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that too, because like it looks like I was begging, I was looking for this because the AWA kind of did a thing with New Japan in like 1990, and there's like six mans with the Destruction Crew, which is Wayne Enos and Wayne Bloom, later the Beverly Brothers, and Vader as a six-man team. And I was like, oh, I want to see that so bad. And there's a tag match between those two and Shono and Muda. And I'm like, oh, does this exist anywhere? And I can't find it, and it's driving me nuts. But maybe I'll look for it later. But yeah, let me know, and I'll pass it along. We'll end it there. This has been Shake the Ropes. I am Jeff Hawkins. You can follow me at CrapGame13. You can follow Chris only on Instagram at DOCTOR_NOV. We are part of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. For more audio from me, you can listen to The Dynamite Show on Fight Game Media every Wednesday night, about 20 minutes after the show. We go live, drops in your podcatcher the next day. And I also did the Fight Game podcast for Figure 4 Wrestling this week. That will be out tomorrow morning as I speak, but Friday morning. Yeah, and Chris teaches guitar and does other things. He'll plug those for you now.
Learn music from me. Message me on Instagram, and I will teach you how to play guitar, bass, drums, music, all of the things. You can learn them on Instagram.
At once?
If you want, it's your hour. It's however you want to learn.
If you want to be a one-man band, come to Chris November.
Yeah, I can do that. I can do that. Other than that, I'll be keeping up with all the details on this new Creed reunion tour that's going on here, and I'll give you guys some updates next week on what Scott Stapp, Mark Tremonti, and the boys are doing.
God, we turned into Fightful real quick.
I will take you higher.